There was no way in life that I would have left Damascus. But then you're faced with this decision. You either leave or you die.
I am Hassan Akkad, a filmmaker, photographer, and refugee from Syria.
Conversations about food will allow you to have conversations about more difficult things. And this is what I try to do. I'm Asma Khan, a restaurateur, entrepreneur, and activist.
It's always very difficult when you're uprooted from your culture and your society and you live in exile, especially when it comes to identity.
I am the face of every woman who's been sidelined because of the color of her skin, because of the size of her dress size, because of her Muslim name and identity.
Asma, I heard you talking about empowering women through your cuisine.
Yes.
But I also read in an interview that you don't describe yourself as a feminist.
Yes.
Why is that?
It's very complicated because, I feel that in the West, a lot of white feminists don't get me. There is this kind of almost black and white, a bit like this good immigrant, bad immigrant. And unfortunately, feminism is riddled with this. I have been very uncomfortable when I've seen conversations around, women wearing hijabs, and this whole idea that they really don't have the right to talk about the rights of women. Somehow that piece of cloth has taken away their right to speak about feminism. And this makes me deeply uncomfortable because I think that there is an acceptance of the fact that I can be in my culture, I can be deeply rooted in all the positive things about my culture. I can still raise my voice against patriarchy. The gender bias in my culture is terrible. And, I have the right to voice those opinions. But I also have the right to defend things that are positive for our women. And I don't feel I need to burn everything that is beautiful to prove that I'm a feminist. My rights don't come from ridiculing my mother and my grandmother. This is the difficulty that, I'm very uncomfortable when people bash a culture for being what it is. Every culture has its problem. This is my problem about feminist debate in this country. They exclude people like me. And this is very hard. But, when you're talking about excluding people and being on the fringes, you were not on the fringes. You were right in the heart of it. During the pandemic, what made you go into the hospital at a time when all of us, I would cross the road and not walk on the same side as a hospital because the infection was rampant. So tell me, what made you do that?
When the pandemic started, I was freaking out. I started putting on Instagram. I was like, is anyone else scared about this or is it just me? Because the pandemic basically reminded me of what happened back home. Britain, to me, when I came here, I thought I was going to be safe, everything's fine, I'm going to live a safe life. So when I started seeing queues outside supermarkets and I started seeing lockdowns and things, I was like, I was being very triggered. So I wanted, in a way, to do something so I can stay sane and also to help the community where I live. I live in East London. I really like my community. It's so diverse. And we have a hospital. And I saw that they were urgently looking for cleaners. I haven't done cleaning professionally before.
I'm sure there wasn't a long list of people wanting to be hospital cleaners at that time.
The next day they called me, I got the job, and I was assigned to work in a COVID ward, cleaning and disinfecting. And I went there, honestly, feeling so proud. I was like, yes, we're all working together to fight this. And I was very excited. My colleagues in the ward were from about 10 countries. It was like the United Nations in one ward. And I didn't clean the hospital to become an activist. I was there literally just to disinfect toilets and beds. But a month later, I started seeing that the pandemic actually exposed the injustice in our societies. Because what happened is that the government here announced a bereavement scheme. The bereavement scheme, basically, they announced is that if you are a migrant worker working for the NHS during the pandemic, and if you die, they give your family indefinite residency in the country. But the government decided to exclude cleaners, porters, and healthcare assistants and ward hosts. Basically, the people in the bottom of the pyramid who are mostly migrants, So I felt it was very unfair. I was like, this is insane. How could this happen in Britain, one of the oldest democracies in the world? I went to my car and I had like 9,000 followers on Twitter. And I was like, you know what? I'm a filmmaker. I believe in the power of a moving image. And I have this platform, so I'm going to use it. So I recorded a message to Boris Johnson and I put it on Twitter. And within 4 hours, it got 5 million views. And then the government announced a U-turn. I don't take the full credit because there were loads of people talking about it. It was a collective work. But yeah, it was quite surreal for me, to be honest, for that to happen. And it also led me to think about the pandemic in a larger scope, because with time, I started seeing the failures, just U-turn after U-turn after U-turn. And in the midst of all of that, they started to highlight or focus their attention on migrants and refugees crossing the channel to seek asylum here. And it was just obviously like a technique to, to divert our attention, to say, we messed up so much, but look at these vulnerable refugees and migrants who want to come and seek asylum here. Be angry from them, get angry with us. So
this has happened every time. Every time there's been a problem, people have a war. And this has happened from biblical times. There is nothing that will unite your people more than hatred.
Yeah.
And, hate the person who's the most vulnerable. Very easy, that's how you unite them. But your video, I think that was so powerful. And also because it was so raw.
Yeah.
You felt the pain. And
it's the power of storytelling we were just talking about. It's basically about checking our privilege and offering people our megaphone or giving a platform to other voices. I think that it's relevant to all of us, especially in this day and age, especially in the midst of the pandemic, of the Black Lives Matter, of all of these movements, the Me Too. It's about people with a larger platform, inviting others to speak. And that's how it should be. There is this term, which I read sometimes, from my activist friends or campaigners, when they say, we are the voice for the voiceless. I personally do not agree with that. I find it slightly problematic because people are not voiceless. People have voices, What they don't have is a platform. So I wouldn't say I am a voice for the voiceless. I would say I am a voice, and I sometimes lend my megaphones to other voices. People want agency. So to describe them as voiceless, you're taking their agency away from them.
I personally am not uncomfortable with that word because I feel it has helped me from hospitality, where I've taken on this kind of terrible misogyny in kitchens, the bullying, the fact that there are very few women who are powerful, and the fact that if someone, and I'm saying this as a lawyer, if a male chef had touched a female outside the kitchen, he would be in jail. He'd have a criminal record. Somehow, in hospitality, we have protected these men who are violent and bully. So I have seen my role as being that voice, because in hospitality, everybody owes allegiance to someone. I mean, for those who are from that part of the world, it's a bit like Bollywood.
Yeah.
You need to have a godfather. You need either your husband or your uncle or your brother has to be some big, boss. And that's how you get powerful. Being on the fringes has allowed me to raise my voice for those who are trapped, who are chained by their obligation to the system. And this is something that, is significant. And I don't know what you feel about this, that, where there is a hierarchy and how...
That's it. And I mean, essentially, that's what you're doing. That's what you were just talking about. And that's what I was saying. It's about disrupting hierarchies in every industry, in every society, and in every corner of the world. And as a refugee, I was always at the receiving end of humanitarian work or advocacy. People advocate on my behalf. People donate to me, or people raise awareness on my behalf. Now, what I'm trying to do with my work, because I work with a few NGOs and charities, is that we should be doing the work. I don't want someone to advocate on my behalf. I want to advocate for myself. And I want the tools. So if you want me to do this, offer me the tools, give me the training, and I can do it. And I think this is how it should be. So sometimes I do consulting work, and I always advise organizations to hire people with lived experience, people who have lived as a refugee and, of course, have the education, and they can do it. You don't have to do it on their behalf. And it's related to diversity, by the way, in workspace, which
Yeah.
you are very
Yes.
well aware of. But diversity doesn't only happen on the front, you know? Diversity is not if you are a TV station. Diversity is not having a black presenter or a Muslim presenter or a gay presenter. It's about to have diversity within the commissioning editors, you know, in the top of the pyramids.
You're absolutely right. And this is one thing that why we suffer in hospitality.
Yeah.
Because it is invariably a white male who's in a position of power. And there's a lot of self-selection. So you will find other white males who are promoted. And there is this thing that where a lot of females hit the glass ceiling because in a kitchen, suddenly they find the doors are all closed, that they can't actually progress beyond a certain amount. And one of the things that, you know, I will be doing, inshallah, once we finally open, when
Inshallah.
we do. Yes. I'm setting up a mentoring school in my restaurant, not to teach women how to cook or how to bake. I want to teach women how to lead. And this diversity is a problem. I'm very conscious of the fact of ticking a box. And, you know, and with me, you bring me on board, you tick lots of boxes. You know, I'm 50, yes, middle-aged, you know, overweight, Muslim, migrant.
Every single
box.
box.
Yeah. We've just done it all. That's it. Let's just have her. But I am blocking the way for other people to come on. And this is something that, you know, I'm very conscious of. And I'm sure you are as well, that, you know, we need to create space on the stage for others to join us.
Absolutely. So we'll go to the questions now.
My question is based on identity. How did you deal with the identity crisis coming into a different culture, a different background, a different environment?
It's always very difficult when you're uprooted from your culture and your society and you live in exile, especially when it comes to identity. I definitely had an identity crisis when I came here because there's this pressure from the society that you have to integrate. And while you're integrating, you feel like you are cutting loose from your roots. So I balanced it out by making sure that I am befriending as many Brits as possible because they did help me navigate the system here and they helped me understand Britain. But I also made sure that I kept close ties with my Syrian friends. So I do not totally let go of where I come from. It is tiring, it's sometimes suffocating. But the beauty of London is that it's got communities from all over the world. That's how I managed to stay sane and try to work out my identity crisis.
Taking on your point about being London, I think it's embraced us all. And I have lived longer in the UK than I have in India. I still wear Indian clothes. I don't eat pork. I don't drink alcohol. You know, people are saying, oh, but, you know, they feel I haven't integrated. I have integrated as much as I want. I'm at peace with myself. And even though it's kind of slightly disconnected, and he used the word suffocating, yes, sometimes it's very hard. But there also comes with that great privilege of being able to speak two languages, to talk in two cultures, to dress in two ways, you know, and as a woman, it's a huge luxury that I can be this and I can be that. You know, my nourishment and my roots are now in two lands, which is not unusual. This happens to a lot of people. Who is still living in the same house where they were born? Most people have moved on. They have new relationships, new jobs, new cities, new countries, new passports. It is difficult when it is about identity and language and religion and culture, but it is part of what we're doing. All of us are doing every day. It's just that we don't understand that this is what we're doing. We're juggling lots of plates together.
So shall we take another question?
I'm a journalism student from Pakistan, and my dream is to work as a foreign correspondent one day. But I also don't want to turn a blind eye toward the harsh realities of the world we live in today. So my question to you is that do you think I would need to dilute my accent to fit more Western norms to follow my dreams?
Definitely not. Do not dilute your accent. I say that because I've done it. There was a phase in life where I wanted to speak with a perfect American accent because I thought that will be accepted if I am more similar to Americans or to Westerners. But it really wasn't the right move. It's good to be influenced by the language or the culture, in my opinion, to learn from it, but I don't have to do it so well that I will be accepted. You know, I don't have to be speaking exactly like David, so David can befriend me. I take so much pride in my spelling mistakes, in my mispronunciations, and I just gonna carry on like that.
I think that it is not the accent, it is the story that you're telling. Never, ever forget your roots, ever, because this is what will make you unique. We carry something very unusual in our DNA, which is so personal. It's the food you ate, it's the songs that your mother sang. This is what has made you, not your accent, not what you wear. You know, I think I'm always very, concerned when I see a lot of women talking about, what they're wearing, what they're doing, what they post on their social media. And I strongly say, you are beyond your dress size, beyond how many followers you have, the bank balance of your partner, the car you drive. If you, like an arrow, can pierce through the heart of someone with your message, that is your success. And whichever accent you say it in, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That message is very important.
So warm greeting from the Graduate Institute's Global Migration Center in Switzerland. If you believe that human mobility is a wealth for all societies, how can you take over the populist discourses on migrants, not only in Western countries, but also within the global South?
For centuries, people moved around, and migration happens because of a crisis and a problem. The politicization of it now makes it very difficult, but within landmass, like in Africa or in Asia, people do move. Not everybody is coming across into Europe. But the problem is that it is seen as this is the only debate that's happening. There are very poor countries like Bangladesh who are supporting a huge number of people, Rohingyas. And you've got, a country like Lebanon that has got massive number of, Syrians. Movement happens, but these stories are not told. This is to do with some amount of racism and some amount of bias.
It was labeled a crisis, a refugee crisis, when the first dinghy arrived to Europe, as if it wasn't happening before then. There is a refugee crisis beyond the borders of Europe, of course. And populism has led to some, it's changed Europe. When I did the journey in 2015 compared to now Europe has closed its borders, militarized and fenced up their borders. At some point, rescue boats were not allowed to deck in Italy. So what can we do about that? We have to understand and we have to clarify that climate change and man-made crises will push more and more people to move. So we need to lobby our politicians, our MPs, our leaders to uphold the rules of law when it comes to refugees and migrants and stop focusing on nationalism and hate and closing our borders. There are people in Croatia, in Macedonia, in northern Greece, who are beaten up by European police and pushed back, which is against the law. You would think that such a thing wouldn't happen in Europe. So we should probably also start from there, that you don't beat up anyone, full stop, but especially someone who's fleeing for their life.
Hi there. I wanted to know what other ways you explore to shine a light so that women, girls and people can have their voice heard and not be silenced, but also about combating racism and bullying that we've seen so much of.
I think it is really important that you raise your children to understand that they must call out bullying. And I'm very conscious, and this is why I speak a lot about racism, about discrimination, because I know I'm on stage. The spotlight has hit me now. I feel I am the face of every woman who's been sidelined because of the color of her skin, because of the size of her dress size, because of her Muslim name and identity. And I think that it is a responsibility that we all have. And even if it is just about educating your colleagues or educating your neighbors who you feel have prejudices, you don't need to do something dramatic, but it is a drop and a drop. When you and I will both be gone, we will leave that legacy. That person whose mind you changed, whose heart you changed, will then possibly influence someone else. This is the only way we can make a difference, because we need to bring down hatred and get people to accept us as equal because we are equal.
Hello, I'm one of the co-founders of MESE in Portugal. I would like you to speak more about how, like, the lack of existing of laws through the embassy push people to cross the Mediterranean looking for life to change. So how a story can actually change people's vision and change laws that help people. That's it. Thank you.
It's a really good question. And if you don't want me to ask, Asma, I'll answer that. It works when you put a face on the crisis, because when we read about a crisis from the news focusing on numbers, so in 2016, you'll hear on the news, 400 people arrived to Greece, 500 people arrived to Italy, 600 people. But who are these people? Tell me who they are. Where they come from, their background, why are they fleeing? And second of all, why are they going on boats? Because there's no such thing as a humanitarian visa. By the way, there's this other myth that they call them illegal migrants. According to the Geneva Convention, you are perfectly within your rights to cross as many countries as you want and then get to Britain or get to Sweden or get whatever you want and then claim asylum. It is not illegal. It is perfectly legal. So how do we address it? Again, I'll go back to storytelling. I'll go back to putting a face on a crisis.
I also want to just add, we have got this whole culture now where people, you can't get, a visa. So if I wanted to hire a cook, he'd have to have the qualifications of a brain surgeon to qualify. So, raising these kinds of threshold, making it almost impossible to use the legal route to apply for visas. So even, this Australian point system, these are all deeply flawed. It is this whole idea of going back to the good immigrant and the bad immigrant. We want, the maths teacher, but we do not want someone, who will sweep, the floors in the hospitals. But you need people to sweep floors in the hospital. This is completely skewed towards what they think they need and what they think they can get away with, because it's like a hungry lion. You have fed hatred into the tabloids and the newspapers, and now you have to keep feeding them these stories of hatred. When you have dehumanized a whole group of people, that people don't see them as human anymore, they don't want them in the country, and that is a problem.
Hello, Asma. The question is for you. As you are from India, you would hear the horror stories about the issues around consumption of beef.
Yeah.
People killed, got attacked. Do you think India failed to delivering or ensuring the food democracy?
I think it's very, very complicated. Every time I eat, I remember my grandmother saying that on every grain, your name is written. If it is not your destiny, that grain will fall from your mouth. Eating is such a privilege. To resent that someone else eats, irrespective of what they eat, is deeply wrong. People die of hunger in India. And this is something that we should actually recognize, that hunger is in our midst. We should not use food as a weapon against each other. I should not go and force my food habits, my likes and dislikes on someone else. I should be happy. It's a blessing. They eat, I eat. We are allowing people to force us into debates about food and hatred. I want to see as many people go to bed having eaten a meal. For me, that would give me dignity. I don't want to hate anyone. It's been
great to sit here with you and have a chat. And I hope soon we will do it around a table in your restaurant.
Thank you very much. And actually, this is how, we actually get to know each other. When you share that bread together, there's that moment where you are together at one level. It doesn't matter where you come from, the color of your skin, your gender, or who you are. That's the moment of equality, that shared moment that you have that same food. Everybody invite someone different to your house and let's feed and let's nourish everybody. And this way, we can reduce the amount of hatred everywhere.
Right, thank you.
Sometimes we writers, especially from the quote-unquote developing world, third world, Africa, I think we're really closet masochists.
The entire relationship with the past is full of ruptures. And because of that vacuum, you can't talk about the complexity of history.
One of my guiding mantras is let nations die that humanity may survive. The problem I have is I don't know what will take its place.